Namaskar and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching the news, your one stop for all that's happened across India and the world through the day today. Let's begin with the headlines first. On a three-day visit to Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi to launch several projects, take part in many events of national and international significance. Vice Chief Lieutenant General Manoj Pandey appointed next Army Chief, first engineer to occupy the post. Incumbent Army Chief General M.M. Navarane to retire this month. Spurt in COVID-19 tally, 2,183 new cases reported in 24 hours. Total cases now 11,542, 186.54 crore vaccinations completed so far. Public protests against economic crisis in Sri Lanka. President names new cabinet of 17 ministers. Government sends delegation to discuss IMF bailout. Russia launches missile strikes on Ukraine's Lviv and other cities. President Zelensky vows to fight till the end in Mariupol, says first step for EU membership completed. And let's now take a quick look at some more important news as well. Health Ministry to organize block-level health Melas at more than 1 lakh Ayushman Bharat health and wellness centers. Five-day Army Commanders Conference starts in Delhi. Senior Indian Army officers to review operational situation in border areas. Centre to organize grand event at Red Fort premises to mark 400th Prakash Guru Parv of Guru Tegh Bahadur on 20th and 21st of April. Maharashtra government to issue guidelines for use of loudspeakers in religious places soon. CBI joins the International Child Sexual Exploitation Database of Interpol. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin urges Governor to forward NEET exemption bill to President immediately. BSE Sensex plunges nearly 2% on weak cues from other Asian global share markets, closes at below 57,200 points. World Bank report says extreme poverty in India declined 12.3 percentage points during 2011 to 2019. United States rocked by 3 mass shootings during Easter weekend, 2 people dead. And Ukraine crisis could expose up to 1.7 billion people to poverty and hunger, says UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. And now some important news in detail. Prime Minister Modi will address the nation from the Red Fort on the 400th Prakash Parv of Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur on 21st of April. Prime Minister Modi will also release a special coin and postage stamp on this occasion. 400 Ragis will sing the Shabad Kirtan. The Ministry of Culture is organizing the event in collaboration with the Delhi Sikh Gurdwara Management Committee. Chief Ministers of many states and many eminent personalities of the country and the world will also take part in this program. The program is being organized under the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
21 को भारत का प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी इस पर्व के समापन समागम में शामिल होंगे। उनकी याद में, उनके बलिदान के याद में आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री के द्वारा एक पोस्टल स्टाम्प, डाक टिकट और कॉइन भारत सरकार के द्वारा जारी किया जाएगा, उसका आविष्कार भी होगा।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Ahmedabad this afternoon for a 3-day visit to Gujarat. Governor of Gujarat, Acharya Devvrat, Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel and other dignitaries welcomed him at Ahmedabad Airport. The Prime Minister visited the Command and Control Center for Schools in Gandhinagar and interacted with students and teachers from the state online. On Tuesday, the Prime Minister will dedicate to the nation a new dairy complex and potato processing plant at Yadav, Banaskantha district. The plant is built at a cost of over 600 crore rupees. He will also lay the foundation stone of the WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine in Jamnagar. Prime Minister of Mauritius, Kumar and Director General of World Health Organization will also be present. On Wednesday, Prime Minister will inaugurate the Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit at Gandhinagar. The summit will uncover investment potential and give a fillip to innovation, research and development, startup ecosystem and the wellness industry. Prime Minister of United Kingdom Boris Johnson will pay his first official visit to India on Thursday at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He will visit Ahmedabad on April 21st, where he will meet leading business leaders to discuss UK's thriving commercial, trade and people links with India. Johnson is also expected to announce investments in key industries in both UK and India. On day 2 of his visit, Johnson will arrive in New Delhi on Friday to a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He will also hold bilateral consultations with Prime Minister Modi then. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval on Monday called cybersecurity the foundation of any successful digital transformation. Doval was inaugurating the National Cybersecurity Incident Response exercise in New Delhi. He said any threat in cyberspace directly impacts the country's social and economic security, highlighting the country's digital revolution and the government's efforts in launching several digital services. He stressed the significance of safeguarding the national cyberspace. And now in news from across the country, a parliamentary delegation led by Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla will visit Vietnam from 19 to 21st of April. During this 3-day visit to Vietnam, Om Birla will call on the President of the National Assembly and the President of Vietnam as well. The Indian delegation will leave on the second leg of its visit to Cambodia on 22nd April. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is on a visit to the United States to attend meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. She will also meet the G20 finance ministers and the central bank governors. The finance minister will also take part in bilateral meetings with several countries, including Indonesia, South Korea, Sri Lanka and South Africa. Mauritius Prime Minister Kumar arrived in Mumbai on an 8-day visit to India at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi. He is accompanied by his wife Kobita Jugnauth and a high-level delegation. Prime Minister of Mauritius will visit Varanasi during his stay in India. The Supreme Court cancelled the Allahabad High Court's bail to Ashish Mishra in the Lakhimpur Kheri violence case. The special bench also asked the accused to surrender within a week. 8 people were killed in the violence in Lakhimpur Kheri on 31st of October last year. 7 suspects were presented in Rohini Court today in the Jahangirpuri violence case. 21 people have been arrested so far in this case. The arrested people include 2 teenagers. A special court extended judicial custody of Maharashtra Minister and NCP leader Nawab Malik till 22nd April. Malik had appealed for immediate release, citing ill health. The ED arrested Nawab Malik on 23rd of February. Auto, taxi and cab drivers in Delhi are on a strike, demanding subsidy in CNG and change in fare rates in view of rising fuel prices. Their organizations decided to go on strike despite the Delhi government announcing a committee to consider the revision of fares in a time-bound manner. Wholesale price inflation touched a 4-month high of 14.55% in March. The increase is attributed to rise in prices of crude oil and commodities. Vegetable prices saw a decline in this period. WPI inflation has been in double digits for the 12th month in a row since April 2021. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla addressed the India at the 75 Azadi Ka Amit Mahotsav program in Delhi on Monday. He underscored the potential of the youth in bringing economic and social changes in the world with its talent and abilities, praising the intellectual and innovation potential of the youth of the country. Speaker Birla said ambitious missions like Atmanirbhar Bharat, Digital India, Skill India, Make in India can attain new heights only with the participation of youth. Speaker Om Birla asserted that India will occupy pole position in the world. The Lok Sabha Speaker also stressed that in the next 25 years, India will celebrate its centenary celebration of independence. In this context, he said the contribution of the youth will be a key factor in nation building.
जितनी भी हमारी चुनी हुई लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाएं हैं, उन लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाओं के बारे में भारत का नौजवान क्या सोचता है, उसका क्या विजन है, क्या सोच है, समाज में कैसे परिवर्तन कर सकता है, इसके लिए इस अमृत महोत्सव में हम सबको सामूहिकता से काम करने की आवश्यकता है.
And time now for some news from the world of business and economy. China's economic growth edged up to a still weak 4.8% over a year earlier in the first 3 months of 2022 as a wave of coronavirus outbreak led to shutdowns of industrial cities. Growth crept up from the previous quarter, 4%, following a slump triggered by tighter official controls on the use of debt by China's vast real estate industry. China's growth compared with the previous quarter slowed to 1.3% from 1.4%. The slowdown in the world's second largest economy is hurting its trading partners by depressing demand for oil, steel, consumer goods, food and other imports. A spokesperson for the National Statistics Bureau said domestically COVID-19 continues to have an impact on economy, and some of the unforeseen factors exceeded their expectations. First quarter economic growth was below the ruling Communist Party's annual target of 5.5%. Forecasters say that it will be hard to meet without large government stimulus spending. Despite the latest wave of infections, China's COVID case numbers are still relatively low. But Beijing is responding to its largest outbreak since 2020 with a zero COVID policy that aims to isolate every person who tests positive. The resultant shutdown of most businesses in Shanghai has prompted fears that global manufacturing and trade might be disrupted. Cities affected include Tianjin, a port and petrochemical center east of Beijing, Shenzhen, a finance and tech center near Hong Kong, and the manufacturing centers of Changchun and Jilin in the northeast. Smaller cities also have suspended access, closed businesses, ordered residents to stay home, or imposed other controls. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. And for more on this, we're joined by our colleague Teena. Teena, good evening. China, world's second largest economy, seems to be going through a difficult time. Now, the question is that what kind of impact can we, understand vis-a-vis the global economy and specifically with respect to the supply chain management there?
Good evening, Vishal. So, the sheer importance of China in global trade means that prolonged lockdowns in cities of the country will not just have a severe impact on the country itself, but also impact the global trade. And in fact, if we look at the impact on the global supply chain, it's already visible. Ever since cities of Shanghai, which is a major business hub, and Jilin have entered lockdowns, the shares of cars and semiconductor producers have gone up massively. And now the industry experts are warning that if Shanghai does not resume production by May, all of the producers in that area who have supply chains in that area will come to a complete halt, and especially the automotive industry, if we talk about. And the impact will also be felt on on India. So if we talk about us, even though our country is a major drug producer, 70% of the pharmaceutical ingredients we import from China. So lockdowns in Shanghai, which is the world's largest container port, and also in other port hubs like Shenzhen, like Tianjin. So if there are lockdowns and severe curbs, which we are witnessing at the moment, they are going to impact global supply chains. And all of this is going to dent the global economy as well.
Okay, so there it is, concerns vis-a-vis the global economy and specifically the supply chain management rising out of that crisis or problems being faced by China, world's second largest economy. Thank you so much, Teena. Moving on now, the first cruise ship to arrive in Australia since the COVID-19 pandemic, 2 years ago, docked in Sydney on Monday morning. Now, the cruise ships have not been allowed to dock in Australia since the death of almost 30 passengers who contracted COVID-19 while traveling on the Ruby Princess ship in March 2020. Let's listen into the details. The Pacific Explorer entered Sydney Harbour on Monday, the first cruise ship to arrive in Australia since the industry was banned in March 2020. Public health measures have been implemented to deal with COVID-19 infections on board cruise ships. Tugboats carrying water cannons showered the cruise liner as it sailed into the city's cruise terminal, while hordes of people watched from the shore. There were about 250 staff on board, but no passengers. The Pacific Explorer made the 18,000-kilometer voyage back from Cyprus, where the ship has been anchored with many others after the local cruise industry was shut down due to COVID. It can welcome 1,998 passengers and is operated by 924 staff members at full capacity. Australian media reported the ship will welcome its next passengers on 31st May when it departs for Brisbane. In March 2020, it was widely reported that passengers of the Ruby Princess who disembarked in Sydney had contributed to the spread of the virus in the local community. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. We'll take a short break here, but coming up on the other side, Ukrainian fighters take a break from the war to take part in the Invictus Games sporting event.
Criminal Procedure Identification Bill of 2022 proposes to empower police and prison authorities to take measurements of convicts and other persons for identification.
You've only got now better identification techniques, that's all. It's an advance in civilization techniques of investigation.
It would also shorten investigation cycles so that the police can give better quality investigation.
How do you think we need to ensure that there is effective implementation of this proposed legislation?
The rule-making power, which was in the earlier act with the state government only, now the rule-making power has been extended to the central government as well.
Welcome back. Let's first take a look at all the latest updates from the war front in Ukraine. 7 people were killed and 11 injured in Russian missile strikes on the western Ukrainian city of Lakh on Monday morning. Ukrainian officials said that 3 missiles struck empty military warehouses, while a 4th hit a civilian garage. At least 7 people were killed, but more victims are feared to be trapped under the rubble. Ukraine has vowed to fight to the end in Mariupol after a Russian ultimatum expired for remaining forces to surrender in the Black Sea port city, where Moscow is pushing for a major strategic victory. The city still has not fallen. Prime Minister of Ukraine said Moscow has shifted its military focus to gaining control of the eastern Donbas region and forging a land corridor to already annexed Crimea. The Kremlin has accused Ukraine of constantly shifting its position on issues previously agreed upon at talks between the two sides. The Kremlin spokesperson said that the Ukrainian side is often changing its position and the trend of the negotiating process leaves much to be desired. He asserted that the contacts are continuing at an expert level. There were no evacuations of Ukrainian civilians from war-affected areas for the second day in a row after Ukrainian and Russian officials failed to agree on humanitarian corridors, Ukraine officials said on Monday. They accused Russian forces of blocking and shelling escape routes. Ukraine says it has completed the questionnaire that is the starting point for the European Union to decide on the membership for Kiev. The questionnaire was handed to Zelensky by European Commission President during her visit to Kiev on 8th of April. Zelensky is expecting the European Commission to issue a positive recommendation on Ukraine's compliance with the criteria. And news now from other parts of the world. China on Monday reported 3 deaths in Shanghai due to the ongoing COVID-19 surge. The country's business hub of 26 million people continues to be paralyzed by the Omicron variant outbreak. All 3 victims were elderly, unvaccinated residents aged between 89 to 91 years with underlying ailments. China has over 3,72,000 infected cases since 1st of March. 2,723 COVID-19 cases were reported on Monday, of which 2,417 were in Shanghai. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has appointed a new cabinet of 17 ministers. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa is the only family member to retain a position in the new cabinet. Earlier this month, Sri Lanka's entire cabinet, aside from President and his elder brother, Prime Minister, resigned from their post. The previous cabinet had to make way for the President to form a unity cabinet with the opposition members. The opposition, however, declined the offer. Authorities in South Carolina in USA are investigating a shooting at a nightclub early on Sunday that wounded at least 9 people. It was the second mass shooting in the state and the third in the nation during the Easter holiday weekend. In Pittsburgh, 2 male youths were killed and at least 8 people wounded when shots were fired during a party at a short-term rental property. Investigators believe there were multiple shooters. The death count from the floods that have battered South Africa climbed over 440 on Sunday as abating rains allowed rescue operations to accelerate after one of the deadliest storms in the living memory. Torrential rains that started lashing the southeastern coastal region last weekend quickly triggered heavy floods and landslides that smashed into Durban city and surrounding areas, pulling with them buildings and people as well. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi on Monday warned that Israel will be targeted by his country's armed forces if it makes the tiniest move against Iran. He spoke as talks stalled in Vienna over a deal to rein in Iran's nuclear capabilities, which Tehran says are used for peaceful purposes. Israel is opposing a deal, saying it does not do enough to curb Iran's nuclear program or its military activities across the region. Israeli officials have said that they will unilaterally do what is necessary to protect their country. Raisi addressed Israel directly during a speech at an annual parade of Iran's armed forces. Now, the doodle as an art form is in focus at this unique exhibition in Rome. It showcases not just Renaissance painters, but the artistic inspiration of accountants, scribes, chancellors, and even notaries in the moments of boredom. They include bizarre and disordered figures. Doodles, sketches, and caricatures are often seen as a marginal phenomena. In reality, they are part of the creative process and an important part of artists' creativity. They allow artists to take a step back from their creations to regenerate their strokes. The Academy of France in Rome is focusing on this aspect at its exhibition that displays doodles by artists from all epochs. These doodles are usually found at the back of the paintings and in random sketches scattered across artist studios. 150 works from the Renaissance to contemporary times tell the story of the art of doodling in the Renaissance Villa Medici. The exhibition highlights one of the most unknown practice of drawing through the works by Leonardo, Michelangelo, Bernini, Picasso, and many others from various Italian and European collections. The exhibition invites visitors to move their gaze to the back of paintings or the wall of workshops, to the margin of drawings or underneath detached frescoes. It shows how these experimental, transgressive, and liberating graphic practices that obey no rules have always marked the history of artistic creation. The show also includes various emblematic works by modern artists. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. And time now for some news from the world of sports. Let's start with cricket first. In the 30th match of IPL 15 being played at the Brabant Stadium in Mumbai, two former champions, Rajasthan Royals and Kolkata Knight Riders, are facing each other. Both the teams are at 6 points each but are placed just below the cutoff for the playoffs. Rajasthan are on the 5th place and KKR on the 6th. A win today can take the victor to the 2nd place depending on the net run rate. There were two matches played in IPL on Sunday. In the first match, Sunrisers Hyderabad defeated Punjab Kings by 7 wickets to record their 4th consecutive win. In the evening match, Chennai Super Kings looked all set for their second win after posting 169 and reducing Gujarat Titans to 448 by the end of the 8th over. South African David Miller and Afghan Rashid Khan had different plans and snatched victory from the jaws of CSK, winning by 3 wickets with 1 ball to spare. Miller was not out on 94 of 51 balls. Exit with a solid win. In tennis, Stefanos captured his second straight Monte Carlo Masters crown with a 6-3, 7-6 win over the first-time ATP Tour finalist Alejandro Fokina, claiming his first title of the 2022 season. Greek world number 5, Stefanos' second Masters 1000 title comes at a perfect time for the 23-year-old, who is hoping to improve on his runner-up finish at last year's French Open and claim a maiden Grand Slam title this year. On to surfing now. Tyler Wright of Australia and Brazil's Felipe Toledo were victorious at the Rip Curl Pro Bells Beach, the 4th leg of the World Surf League 2022 Championship Tour. After previous runner-up finishes at the event, it was the first win at the iconic Bells Beach for both surfers, who adapted best to the move for the finals to a different beach nearly because of a strong offshore wind. The Invictus Games sporting event for wounded, injured and ill service personnel and veterans opened on Saturday night with a standing ovation and a tribute from Prince Harry for Ukrainian team members who left their war-torn nation to compete.
With Harry and his wife Meghan in the front row for the event's opening ceremony, competitors cheered as Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte welcomed the Ukrainian team to the event that was delayed by 2 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Harry founded the Invictus Games to aid the rehabilitation of injured or sick military service members and veterans by giving them the challenge of competing in sports events similar to the Paralympics. The Ukrainians, many of them taking a brief break from defending their country against the Russian invasion that triggered a devastating war, are among around 500 competitors from 20 nations taking part in the Games. For Harry and Meghan, it was the first public appearance in Europe since they gave up their formal royal roles and moved to the US more than 2 years ago. This is the 5th Invictus Games. Previous events have been held in Australia, USA, the UK and Canada, where Harry and his wife made their first public appearance together in 2017. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And before we bring this bulletin to an end, let's take a quick look at the headlines. On a 3-day visit to Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi to launch several projects, take part in many events of national and international significance. Vice Chief Lieutenant General Manoj Pandey appointed next Army Chief, first engineer to occupy the post, incumbent Army Chief General M.M. Naravne to retire this month. Spurt in COVID-19 tally, 2,183 new cases reported in 24 hours. Total cases now 11,542, 186.54 crore vaccinations completed so far. Public protests against economic crisis in Sri Lanka. President names new cabinet. Government sends delegation to discuss IMF bailout. And Russia launches missile strikes on Ukraine's Lviv and other cities. President Zelensky vows to fight till the end in Mariupol, says first steps for EU membership completed. And that's all we have in this edition of the news. We'll come back again tomorrow. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.